In ancient Greek and Latin, the word for tattoo was stigma. Like its English equivalent, stigma had connotations of infamy and disgrace, a reflection of the classical association of tattoos with slaves, criminals, and barbarians. The tattooed barbarians known best to the Greeks were the Thracians, who lived north and east of Macedon. Thracian women tattooed their arms and legs with silhouettes of animals and patterned lines. Mystified by this practice, Greek authors speculated that it commemorated the death of the mythical bard Orpheus, who had been torn to pieces by Thracian Maenads. In the vast arc of steppes beyond the Thracians roamed the Scythians, another tattooed people. The bodies of their chieftains, found frozen in the Siberian permafrost, display a dazzling array of designs, from rearing stallions to fantastic beasts. On the opposite side of the world, known to the Greeks, the mummies of Egyptian women from the Middle Kingdom period exhibit patterns of tattooed dots and lines. Millennia later, Roman authors remarked on the Egyptian custom of tattooing children. In Syria, worshippers tattooed their wrists with marks of devotion to the gods, a custom so widespread that the author of Leviticus saw fit to forbid the Israelites from tattooing themselves. The Persians, by contrast, used tattoos as a punishment. During his conquest of the Persian Empire, Alexander encountered an entire settlement of Greeks who had been mutilated and tattooed on the orders of the King of Kings. A century and a half before, during the Persian invasion of Greece, Xerxes had a contingent of his Theban allies tattooed. Earlier, if Herodotus can be believed, he had ordered the sea itself to be whipped and tattooed after a storm destroyed his bridge over the Hellespont. Much though they despised such tyranny, the Greeks came to imitate the Persian custom of penal tattooing, as we'll see after a brief word about this video's sponsor. Established Titles offers certificates to small plots of land in Scotland, which, in keeping with a historic Scottish custom, allow recipients to call themselves Lord or Lady. If you are so inclined, you can even change your name officially in certain documents. I can attest to this, since I have a certificate informing all and sundry that I may style myself Lord Garrett Ryan. Each title pack gives you at least 1 square foot of land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, along with an official certificate featuring a unique plot number. Since Established Titles plants a tree after every purchase and works with global charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, it's a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping global reforestation efforts. As an additional perk, the first 200 people who purchase a title pack with my link will be granted plots quite close to mine and join the Told-in-Stone Kingdom. Established Titles makes a great last-minute gift, so take advantage of the massive Black Friday sale going on now. Head to establishedtitles.com/toldinstone and use the code TOLDINSTONE for an additional 10% off. Back to tattoos. Before they encountered the Persians, the Greeks do not seem to have practiced tattooing. But by the beginning of the classical period, they had begun to tattoo fugitive slaves, most often on the face or neck, with phrases like, "Stop me, I'm a runaway." Such tattoos became familiar enough to be referenced both in a ribald Hellenistic poem, in which a woman summons a tattooist to punish her slave lover, and in the Book of Revelation, which describes the tattooed forehead of the whore of Babylon. The Greeks also tattooed prisoners of war, typically with the emblems of their captors. Athenian soldiers seized in the wake of the disastrous Sicilian expedition, for example, were tattooed with the horse of Syracuse. Such tattoos were a mark of subordination. After defeating the Rhodians, Queen Artemisia of Halicarnassus reportedly set up a statue of herself tattooing a personified city of Rhodes. Like the Greeks, the Romans tattooed slaves. One of Caligula's many crimes was the tattooing of freeborn men. As in the Greek world, facial tattoos were most common. When the main characters of Petronius's Satyricon, a Roman novel, decide to disguise themselves as slaves, they shave their eyebrows and draw fake tattoos on their foreheads with ink. Constantine decreed that, since the human visage was made in the divine image, it should not be defaced with tattoos. This edict, however, seems to have been honored in the breach. Even a half millennium after Constantine, the Byzantine Emperor Theophilus ordered 12 lines of very bad poetry to be tattooed on the faces of 2 monks who had defied his prohibition on icons. By the reign of Constantine, the Romans were also tattooing soldiers. A late antique military manual mentions marking recruits with the insignia of their units, and an imperial decree of the same era stipulates that all workers in arms factories be tattooed to prevent desertion. The practice continued for some time. A medical treatise from the following century defines tattoos as marks like those placed on the hands of soldiers. Former soldiers and freed slaves seem to have done everything they could to erase their tattoos. Medical texts outlined various methods, which usually involved breaking the skin and rubbing the affected area with caustic substances. Alternatively, tattoos could be covered with bandages or concealed by long hair. There were a few Greeks and Romans, however, who were not ashamed of their tattoos. The semi-mythical sage Epimenides reportedly had himself tattooed with lines from his own poems. Ptolemy IV, king of Egypt, was tattooed with ivy leaves as a mark of devotion to Dionysus. And many early Christians, perhaps inspired by the penal tattoos of the martyrs, had their arms tattooed with the sign of the cross or the name of Jesus. A more expansive devotional tattoo, which praised Mani as a disciple of Christ, once revealed an African monk to be a heretic. A tattoo might even betoken a miracle. When a tumor in St. Macrina's breast was suddenly healed, a tattoo-like mark appeared over the spot. Near the end of the 6th century, the Emperor Maurice received a group of Turkish prisoners at Constantinople and was surprised to see that many had crosses tattooed on their foreheads. When asked how they had acquired these marks, the Turks replied that a Christian had once advised their tribe that the sign of the cross protected against the plague. In this episode, with the cultural heirs of the classical Greeks admiring the tattoos of a tribe that had replaced the Scythians, one feels that the ancient history of tattoos had come full circle. Check out my 2 other YouTube channels, Scenic Routes to the Past and Told in Stone Footnotes. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting Told in Stone on Patreon. You might also enjoy my book, Naked Statues, Fat Gladiators, and War Elephants. Thanks for watching.